You're watching American Wire. Watch how Candace Owens destroys Captain Hook as he tries to attack her personal life. Check it out.
All right, so, can you mateys hear me?
Pardon?
Can you mateys hear me?
Yeah.
All right, so, my question for you was, I believe in high school you had a racial discrimination lawsuit,
Yeah.
and you received $50,000 from your school as a result of this. And you've recently claimed that, racism isn't, such a big deal. So are you interested in perhaps giving that money back, or, what's the plan there?
So you're not educated about my life, and I'm very happy to educate you. And by the way, the best way to get educated about my life is to purchase my book, where I talked about this in chapter 2. I do just want to tell you that, because it's remarkable to me that I wrote about this extensively in my book, and people always think this is a gotcha. They're like, gotcha, this happened to you in high school. Yeah, it's actually the reason I am conservative is because of this thing that happened to me in high school, which was a race incident that involved a kid that was my best friend, and he... I got a boyfriend, that's the truth, and stopped hanging out with all my friends, as high school girls do. Totally innocent, normal situation. And one night, he obviously had too much to drink and got 3 people who I had never heard of or met to leave really horrific racist messages. Now, I've never once said that racism doesn't exist. That's something that was created by the root, and people keep saying I've said it. Actually, I say the exact opposite. Racism will always exist as long as human beings exist, as human beings are ignorant, right? And that's when you meet somebody that's actually racist, they're just ignorant. It's the people that I'm like, I could never even be offended by you being a racist because I'm going to be so far ahead of you in life. It's ridiculous, right? But going back to the story, this kid used to be my friend. He was upset that I stopped hanging out with him. And unfortunately, one of the people that left these messages happened to be the governor of Connecticut's son. So this turned overnight into a political sensational story. It's my first introduction to the media, my first introduction to the NAACP, who showed up at the front of my school, had never talked to me, but tried to raise money off of real hurt that I was going through. Nobody tried to sit down and actually resolve the situation. Was the kid a racist? Well, obviously not, because we were best friends for years, right? Was he hurt? Yes. Did he say racist things? Yes. That situation, and by the way, the money refund that you're talking about was because while this was a huge news cameras outside event, homeschooled. I had to stay home and homeschool and get private tutoring while this was going on until the FBI could trace these phone calls.
Okay, so how hysterical was that to see this guy dressed up as Captain Hook asking his questions? That was hysterical. And I'm glad, you can tell he's just looking for attention. I'm glad he wasn't really rude or disrespectful. He just provided what he thought was a gotcha question. And it's so funny how Candace just kind of confirmed that to him, oh, you're trying to hit me with a gotcha question. And she wrote in her story, her new book, explaining that exact situation. It was interesting to hear her story, right? I never heard it. I haven't bought her book. I never heard that story before. But what an experience to be awakened, so young in high school as to what really is going on in the world. I agree with her, what she said about the NAACP. Whenever you hear them, whenever you see them promoting, whenever you see them asking for money and donation, it's always when it's a situation where it's a white crime against a black person, a white person doing a crime against a black person. You will always see them piggyback around that and raise money and just raise awareness that that's racism, right? But you never hear them cover, at least as far as I've seen. Maybe you have, I don't know. Trying to raise money or trying to raise awareness about crime, black on black crime, right? Because that doesn't fit their narrative. And it's not going to help them push forward their continued agenda that racism is just as bad as it was in the 1950s, right? I mean, it's just crazy. So I agree with Candace there. I like the point that she made with the experience that she had. And I'm glad she was able to make some money to pay for the tutoring that she had to do as she stayed home. I mean, good for her. Good for her.